listening to Dr. Eldad is very, very interesting. And what you are saying is actually, in a way, my point, my talk involves another type of language. Yours, in a way, it involves language as well. It's about music, using the computer and music to reach out in terms of the arts. So for me, it's very modern, it's very technologically an innovation in a way, very much innovative. So what I'm going to be talking about is a little bit more traditional in a way, because what I'm going to is translation, which is my area of studies and my own area of expertise. And it involves the old language of human language, this basic human language. I chose this topic because we have the title today is, this is an Arts and Humanities conference, and the title today, Arts and Global Vision for a Changing World. So I look at the concept of the changing world. There is a lot of talk in Malaysia, particularly at this point, about the fourth revolution. And the fourth revolution being everything to do with technology, devices, and everything technologically new. And as I said, what Dr. Eldad said about music and creating music through the PC and putting together all those things, to me, is very, very new. And a lot of youngsters, especially, I know I can speak on the basis of the experience in Malaysia alone, youngsters are into, young people, a lot of people are into technology, using of technology and so on. So by looking at that, I raised in a way the question of whether translation, which is not really that much technologically, there is a bit of technology in there to help with the translation work, but basically it's about the human, the person having to translate, and the art of the skill and the idea of translating. But to me, I think translation is a very, very important thing towards the sensitizing of, as a tool for sensitizing culture and the thought for the new millennium. I will maybe explain, show you a little bit here. All right. Okay, I'm gonna, hopefully if I can play one video, one music video, I'd like to share with you a little bit what I mean, how the link is between text, translation, arts, and translation. Sorry, is it possible for you to go down a few more slides to, and a bit later? No, yeah, further. Oh, right, okay, for this one. Okay, right. If you can give us a few minutes, listen to this. There's, hopefully I can play that possible. Yeah, just press on. Okay, just enjoy the video for a minute or so. Actually, the video should be moving. It's not just a sound. I want you to see. Actually, it's a visual as well, but it seems to hang. It's more meaningful if you see it with the whole video itself, and I'll explain it. Anyway, while listening to this, if I ask my Malaysian colleagues, I'm sure they are very familiar with this. From USM, I think there are one or two, there are some more from other universities in Malaysia who are here. I'm sure I'm sure they're very familiar with this. But the rest of you, I don't know if you have heard of one person named P. Ramlee. You might never have heard of that, okay? But for Malaysians, young or old, P. Ramlee is a legend. P. Ramlee is a legend. And I think he died maybe about 30, 40 years ago. Maybe around 30 over years ago. P. Ramlee, if you talk about P. Ramlee, I'm not from the arts field, but I'm not from the arts field. Yes, you know, I'm in the language field. But anyone from the sciences or the arts would know of P. Ramlee. I bring it up here because he is so legendary because of his movies, his great songs, his great sounds. He sings them himself, he produces the movies, he writes the songs, and he has got several comedy films on comedy, which actually still holds a lot of value today. And what I chose this one is because it reflects the ethnicity of Malaysia, the Malaysian ethnicity, the multi-ethnicity of Malaysia. In the song, within the words, and the actions that the actions of the dancers and the dressing in that, it reflects a lot of the multi-ethnic makeup of Malaysia in the words that he uses. If I show you this question, sorry. Okay, I'm just going to bring here the words in English and the translation in Malay. So the words in English, it says like the word Nana, second line, for example, the word Nana is actually not, the song is in Malay, but the word Nana is not really a Malay, it's not a Malay word by origin. It is a word that is used to show, to refer to a brother, a husband, somebody older than yourself, but it has the influence of the Indian Muslim community in Penang. So he uses the word Nana instead of the word Abang, the traditional Malay word of for me as the husband or the elder brother, but in this case the husband. He uses the word Nana to reflect the Indian or the Indian Muslim community. And his dressing, he is a Malay, P. Ramlee is a Malay, but the way he dresses is between a mixture of the Malay and a little bit of the wife in there in sari, if you notice, some sort of sari. So it reflects the Malaysian community, where there are Indians, Indian Muslims, Indian Hindus, Chinese, everything, quite a number of ethnic groups in that. And he uses, like, for example, in this song, again, he has things like the word tongkat semambu. In English, it's been translated into I brought a walking stick. As you know, walking stick is just a normal thing. You know, it's everywhere you talk about walking sticks, a cane. But in the Malay version, it's about tongkat semambu is the type of wood that is normally taken to ward off ghosts and spirits, not very negative spirits and ghosts. So that translation has kind of is lost in the English translation. But at least we know what he's talking about. A walking stick, a broad walking stick. There is some amount of meaning in that. And if you go down further, then we talk about belakang rumah ada jembalang. Jembalang is a type of is a ghost or some sort of ghost. The Malaysian community, a lot of Malays and a lot of Malaysian community believe in ghosts and spirits. So we talk about jambalang, one type of ghost. If should anybody believe in ghosts, that would be another one type of jambalang. But one type of ghost, a spirit. And in the translation, it is There is a ghost, just a simple word, ghost. So it doesn't differentiate what type of ghost and so on. Okay? But my point is that I'm not talking about it as just to analyze this culturally to that deep and in fact. But what I want to say is that Piramli is like a very a person of art in this country, very legendary. Malaysians know it, and the younger generation may not know it as that much, but generally, you know, people would have heard of Piramli, would know a little bit of his work. But only Malaysians will be able to share this. If we don't know, we don't share, we don't have it translated, or we don't have materials of art like this translated, we cannot promote it to other people. We cannot establish the links of humanity in a way. Because I chose his because he incorporates things about ethnicity, about respect for other people, about respect for all communities through his language, through his songs, wonderful song and interesting choreography, and also through the words that he uses. So it's always about promoting good relationship between the ethnic communities. I go on just giving another example of translation. This is what we call the pantun in Malaysia. It used to be in our many decades ago. People would be into pantun. Do you want to say something? We don't want to say straightforward, unlike the Western societies where you're quite upfront with things. But the Malays like to, you know, go around about the bush in a little bit. Use metaphorical stuff, so like the pantun. And currently it's coming back into fashion to have a pantun to open ceremonies, to close, and to speak about ideas and so on. Yeah? Okay. So anyway, all right. Okay, I will have several more. This is from the Malaysian perspective. What I will show you a few more. Has any one of you heard of? I'm sure you would, if there are any questions in here. Hafiz. Yeah, Rumi. I'm sure in Canada, Rumi is also quite a big thing. Hafiz, Omar Khayyam. Yeah, so very famous poets, but they're not Malaysian, they're Persian poets. Yeah? Many years ago, when I was even in my school days, I've heard of them and I know a little bit about them, just roughly some poems and so on. But in the last maybe a decade or so, I've been doing a lot of supervision, and I've got a lot of Iranian students. Some of them have graduated, some are still in the process of doing their PhD, and many of them work on Rumi's poems, Hafiz's poems, and when they work on this, there is like that the translation of these poems. How do they get across to other people, and what do you see in the translation of these poems? So it's becoming more, for me, it's becoming a learning experience. But when I use the word Rumi, for example, I had one student who did this project, this doctoral thesis on how Rumi has been interpreted into in different forms, in the language of advertising, in the form of references to other literary works, in the media, for example, in the United States, according to her research, Rumi, there's like a Rumi mania. Everything, I don't know, again, whether in Canada it's similar, but I've been told that in America there is such a movement. So because of that, there is a lot of translation being done at that time. Has been done and will be done again. So if you see this one, Oh, sorry, going back. I'll come back to this in a short while. Okay. This is some translations of Omar Khayyam. I think in this book there are 3 translations, French, English, German, if I'm not mistaken. Then we have this, some of the translation. On the right is the translation of these verse in Omar Khayyam. Again, this is into French. It's been translated into French. And, okay, so basically there is Hafiz's work been translated into French. Omar Khayyam, Rumi, and Hafiz has been translated into French. Sorry, this is not. And we have also things like this, the Quran, religious, the Holy Quran for Muslims. The Quran is the word of God. So for that also we have things that that have been translated into Malay, into English, into various languages. And also this one is, yeah, again, translation of that. Okay. In addition to these type of translations, the poems and also religious texts, as in like the Quran, we also have things now being translated in the Malaysian context. There's a book by the ex-Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tun Mahathir, a book entitled, written in English, A Doctor in the House. This has also been translated into Malay. And if you see, there are some the italicized parts. I'm not analyzing it, but a student of mine also on doctoral thesis also analyzed this, how the translation has moved culturally, what has been affected in this translation. And if you look at this one, there's a poem by a short poem, Singapore, and then in the English version, in Malay English version, Singapore is a new country. Tuan Raffles has become its lord. Indian jasmine, frangipani blossoms, one flower in the dragon's mouth. It's kind of a bit, in a way, literal. Okay. This one is kind of a newer one of a Malaysian. Is what do you call that? Animation. A Malaysian has been translated recently into French. Upin and Ipin. It's quite known and very popular with children. This is the Malay version, but it has recently been translated into French.
Oh, berdua tak ikut sama. Tunggu aiskrim ini habis.
Tunggu aiskrim habis.
Oh, okay. But basically what I'm trying to say is that all these involve literary texts, religious texts, audio-visual texts, and so on. And in the current age where people are communicating so fast, and fourth revolution, communicating over email, people are not interested in, I don't know whether that part of that art is still, in a way, still very much focused. So they're just communicating simply on email, Facebook, Twitter, all short answers, short words, and it can be quite terse in a way. So I'm just interested in finding out whether there is still the place for translation, given that the current language that we are using is no longer like standard language. It's their own creation of a new language. In the Facebook, Twitter, everything is created. I mean, the language is very different from the traditional language that we are used to. So what I did is I just analyzed. I wanted to see whether there are still people interested in traditionally moving from one language to the next of certain more literary art-based or humanities-based texts. So I just analyzed a little bit of the doctoral and PhD thesis that have been done at Universiti Sains Malaysia, under my school, and maybe and also under the School of Humanities. So this is just an example of throughout Malaysia there is a little bit of some universities are also doing it, like 77% in the theses that are in the world, in certain countries that we've found out, 70% come from some other countries, but under Universiti Sains Malaysia, 21% of this doctoral thesis, there's quite a big percentage from the population that we have gathered, but this is not the important. The next one will be. I think I'll just speak from there. There's not a whole lot of a picture of them, yeah. So what we found, a collection of 55 doctoral and masters by research thesis in the last decade or so at the Universiti Sains Malaysia. Out of 55 language-related thesis, 40 of the theses are related to translation studies. Translation and translation studies. 40 of that thesis, which is a big percentage. I think the percentage here is 40%, and something about 60-something percent. And out of these 40 theses, surprisingly, a lot of the majority, maybe around 60%, comes from literary translation of, as I said, Hafiz, Rumi, and Umar Khayyam, and also of P. Ramlee and other English Shakespeare, Jane Austen's work, and a lot of Jane Austen's work and some other English literature. A big portion of that is based on that, and about maybe around 17% from the political or language specific for discourse, political speeches, house speeches, or of very renowned persons are translated, and another maybe 10% or 15% language specific translations like legal translation and legal and medical translation. Again, legal translation, looking at the cultural things. I give you these numbers not to, it may not make a lot of sense to you maybe at this point, but what I'm saying is that surprisingly, I would think with the current trend, the interest in translation might kind of go down a little bit. But in the last few years, the number of doctoral thesis, doctoral research has actually been rising in at least at the Universiti Sains Malaysia. So what it's showing is that I think towards humanity and arts, people think that there is still some amount of relevance to it. If not, nobody would spend 4 or 5 years on doing a doctoral thesis, and many of us know it's not an easy task. Not many people be spending on these things. And those people doing this, from the analysis, quite a big number come from Iran, from Iraq, from Jordan, from a few from Malaysians are there as well, from Yemen, quite a number of countries. So basically, I think there is still a place where I'm concerned that there's still a place for us to learn a little bit more towards the arts and humanities in terms of translation studies. And culturally, even though we are moving ahead and we think that maybe text would not be of so much interest to people, more we go for the faster communication, but in reality we still need these things to promote humanities and understanding of different cultures, differences in opinions, and so on. So basically I'm not going to go and analyze into deeper details. So my point is that we should continue to give this language focus on translation, or focus on the exchange of culture and understanding through translation, dissemination of very important works of each country. For example, Sri Lanka may have a certain of its literary things or very important, significant texts to be translated into other languages, even though commercially they are not so viable. Even though they are not so viable, people may not want to commission such a translation work because they don't really bring, not everybody is going to go and buy all such books. But the essence of the arts and humanities is still, it is still very important to keep this translation of such types of texts going. And the studies of such type of texts, I think is very important for our understanding of other people, other cultures, other communities, so that we minimize the differences between us, between peoples of the world, by getting into the insight of some of the minds of well-known people. Because text, as you know, is actually a reflection of the mind. And you can't get any closer to the mind than to go through, look at the text. So the mind is a black box, and we don't, it's not possible for us to actually know everything in the heart and minds of someone, but through their word, we can get an insight into this. So if we do a little bit of translation, we may lose a little bit, like the one I told you about the walking stick and that kind of thing, but at least we're getting a little bit nearer to understanding more people. And I take it personally because I said I've going through a lot of theses. I supervise a lot of students, graduated maybe around 25 PhD students, and among them I think 80% are translation research students. I find that I'm learning a lot more about the various cultures, the various different places. I'm translation of Japanese literature as well. So I'm learning a lot more through this transfer into English, into my language, into English, and so on. So I think I will stop there for now. So thank you very much for listening, and if you have anything that you would like to comment on, what I've said may not be so practical or may not be the reality in your part of the world or in your own experience, perhaps you can share with me so I can take back also some understanding of the differences here within the context of this art and humanities culture. Thank you very much.